Dr. Pang. You can read more on our website, that's at skynews.com. Now, earlier this week, a panel of the country's most senior judges upheld the validity of a prenuptial agreement here in the UK, in UK law. It allows couples to sign contracts determining how their wealth should be divided if they divorce. Well, that ruling came as the German heiress, Katrina Radmacher, won her case against her ex-husband, who had challenged an appeal court ruling slashing his divorce settlement from more than £5 million to £1 million. The case was seen by lawyers as a test of whether prenup agreements were applicable in law in England and Wales. Well, joining me to debate the issue is Charmaine Hast, Head of Family Law at TWM Solicitors, and also Rupert Myers, lawyer and writer for The Guardian. Afternoon to you both. Rupert, do you think prenups are a good thing?
I don't think they're a good thing, and if we had to have them, this was really the worst way that they could have come in, because a court has ruled that they should be here, but there's no framework for how they would be applied. So someone entering a prenup today, effectively, Charmaine isn't going to be able to tell them whether it'll be valid if they get divorced in 20 years.
Charmaine, you're the other side of the argument, so why do you think they are valid and a good idea?
I think they're a good idea because they take away one of the areas of potential dispute. We have so little chance today of civil partnerships and marriages working. So if we can eliminate one area of potential problem, I believe it's a very good thing.
Do they not also take away romance? And after all, when you get married, you say forever lots of times, I seem to remember, in the service. I mean, you're assuming it's not forever before you've even started.
Except that the society we live in today has got the strains and stresses that one wouldn't expect to be put on marriages in normal circumstances.
But if 45% of marriages fail, but if 45%...
This is incredible.
But if 45% of houses burnt down, we wouldn't be looking at the alarm systems that go off when the fires happen. We were looking at how they're built in the first place. So in terms of looking at the exit strategy, it's not very romantic for someone to come to you, having planned how they're going to leave you, and then say, I'd like to be with you for life, but in the event that I don't, here's what's going to happen.
But using your same analogy, you prepare for the worst anyway. So if your house is going to burn down, so why not, in a marriage, prepare for that, and then it's all settled beforehand?
Well, let's be realistic. A lot of people aren't going to have prenuptial agreements. Only perhaps some very well-off people are going to spend lots of money getting a lawyer to draft this. But in those circumstances, there's going to be a vast inequality, as there was in this case. There's going to be a vast inequality between the rich person and the poor person. So what you're going to be left with upon divorce, if these contracts have effect, you're going to be left with somebody worse off than they would have been under the system which has only just got to a position where partners have equal treatment.
I think to use the word insurance is probably not the right approach, but it's like a house burning down. It's going to be a catastrophe if your marriage or your civil partnership fails. And what prenuptials are doing is they're putting in place what the parties intend when times are good.
But Charmaine will agree with me. What the Supreme Court has said is effectively we'll uphold prenuptial agreements when we like them, and we won't uphold them when we don't like them. And therefore, what good is it if it doesn't help upheld?
Would you like to see some sort of legislation or some sort of proper ruling? I know this was a ruling, but something that lays out circumstances where they should be used, circumstances where they shouldn't.
I think in practice, we've in fact been dealing with prenuptials in this country for quite a long time following the decision of K&K, but this ruling actually does now rubber stamp the approach. And I think although, for example, in South Africa we have a statute which sets out what's required for a prenuptial, I think this decision is quite decisive in that solicitors, and particularly experienced solicitors, do know what to be able to advise clients.
You mentioned South Africa. I'm interested to hear your experiences there of what prenups are all about there.
Well, prenuptials there were originally introduced, believe it or not, because women never had status to contract.
Right.
So they were introduced in completely different circumstances to what we have in England. But in fact, in South Africa, it is the norm. I have a South African marriage and I have a South African prenuptial agreement. But in England, the position is really one where this decision now says, if you want some protection, and I don't agree that it isn't applicable, if you want some finality or some comfort from what your marriage holds for you, this is a way of doing it.
Rupert, this case that we had this last week, I mean, the woman was incredibly wealthy, wasn't she? Why should she, just because she had a failed marriage, have to give a partner that amount of money?
Well, it's hard to feel sorry for Mr. Granatino. I mean, he still walks away a millionaire. But when this is going to be applied to people up and down the country, what they're going to have is effectively a retrograde step. Only in the 21st century has divorce finally, in the case of White and White, ended up with partners getting an equal outcome, equality between a man and a woman, because the contributions that they give to a partnership are now seen as the same. But in these circumstances, we're moving away from that principle. We're moving away from a system where you promise to stay with someone for life, and there is something, as you say, romantic about that. There is something very noble about saying that you wish to spend your life with someone, and that you wish to share what you have equally. And this step is a way of weaseling out of that, if for some reason you think, well, actually, I'm not sure I am going to stay with this person for life. And if that's the case, well, why are you getting married to them in the first place?
Okay, very briefly, aren't you two the types of people that just benefit? It's just the lawyers in the end that benefit, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, not really, because if you have a defended divorce, you're going to spend a lot more unnecessary wealth on lawyers.
Charmaine Hass, thank you very much indeed. Rupert Myers, thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting discussion. Now, Portsmouth.